Alright, so today I want to make a video about this Ontario elementary public teachers school strike or potential strike. I don't know if they've actually went through with the strike yet, but they voted 98% in favor to strike, and I think they had about 80,000 members. And this is a huge issue because you hear all the time about, mainly from politicians on the left, and that they say that teachers aren't paid enough, and they're treated so bad, and they're not paid enough, and all this kind of stuff. And in my mind, I don't understand how you could possibly make that argument. Number one, because especially an elementary teacher, you don't have to be that smart to become an elementary teacher. We're not talking about doctors or lawyers or engineers or something like this. Like, the average run-of-the-mill person with an average intelligence could become an elementary teacher. So in other words, you shouldn't get paid that. I mean, you should be paid decent, yes, but you shouldn't be paid that much. And I seen a story. It's not in. I mean, CBC won't tell you that kind of stuff, but the average teacher, I believe, makes about 80,000 a year, which is more than the average person. Not only that, public school teachers have, I think, about 3 months throughout the year of time off, when the average person gets maybe 2 weeks. I think is probably the average 2 weeks of vacation you get, and I guess that'd be paid, but still, 3 months of time off. I would prefer that over 2 weeks paid vacation. I mean, I don't know anyone who wouldn't do that, especially like if it was 80,000 and 3 months off, or 80,000 and we'll give you 2 weeks paid vacation. I mean, the 3 months off makes way more sense. The other thing too is that public school teachers have excellent pension packages. Basically, that I believe teachers have, aside from the military and like firefighters. Aside from, I think, just the military, I don't think anyone has better pensions than teachers. I mean, I think, at least from what I've heard, and this was literally told to me by teachers I remember in high school, that the best pensions you can find is becoming a teacher or military. And I mean, obviously military is understandable, but the crazy thing about this is that teachers make, I mean, 80,000. I don't see how anyone could argue that a public school teacher, especially a elementary teacher, if you're a high school math or physics or something like that, maybe I would still say no. But how do you think you're worth, I mean, the average person's making what, 55,000, that you're worth that much more than the average person when you're already getting 3 months off? You have, I mean, teachers have their, sabbaticals or whatever they call it too. Their teachers convention, they get, I think, 3 or 4 days off, and they get paid for it, basically. So there's becoming a public school teacher, like, it kind of boggles my mind that how can they, I mean, I can understand why they do it. They're overwhelmingly a leftist institution. I mean, if you work for the government, I mean, public school teachers basically work for the government, which means you're overwhelmingly likely to be on the left to begin with. They're overwhelmingly women, which means you're, I mean, not that much more likely, but more likely to be on the left to begin with. So that's kind of the connection there. So, I mean, they don't talk a whole lot about it here, but basically, the president's called it an overwhelmingly strike vote. Teachers have voiced concern around class sizes, lack of frontline assistance, and violence in classrooms. The president said that these concerns have fallen on deaf ears during negotiations with the government. They have 83,000 members. They're not going through with the strike as of right now, but they may. And then they don't really talk a whole lot more about anything. At least I don't think here. But long story short, every publicly funded thing, whether it's healthcare, I mean, mainly healthcare and public schools, all this kind of stuff, there isn't enough money to fund it as is. And that's for the main reason that the amount of people that are taking more out of the system than they're putting in is consistently going up. And when that happens, the only thing that the government can do to pay for this kind of stuff is to raise taxes or go into more debt. Ontario's already in a massive amounts of debt, even compared to other places that have massive amounts of debt. So they can't really do that. And the Ford government, rightfully so, is cutting this kind of stuff. And the other thing too about this is that they complain about violence in classrooms. This is another thing that bothers me too. Number one, immigration is clearly at play here. I mean, when you have people from all different races, as much as I've said before and I've said it again, as much as I would love to have diversity work out, it doesn't work out because people from different cultures just don't mix. The only way they mix if the only way people from different cultures mix is if the people from the different cultures want to mix. And the majority of people coming from these third world countries, whatever you want to say, they don't want to mix. They want to come here because Canada has a welfare state, basically, in a nutshell, is why they want to come. And like they can take advantage of us in other ways. They can bring their family here to get the free stuff. That's the main reason. And a lot of the more religious people view Canada and the US and basically all Western countries as pushovers, in that they can come here and impose their religion on us. And that's a different issue. But and the other thing too within this is parenting nowadays is so bad, and this is something that whenever you bring it up, even to people on the right, you're shot down, but people on the left really don't want to talk about this kind of stuff. That's kind of the in a nutshell what happens with these kind of things with big issues in society, is that people on the left avoid it like the plague and people on the right avoid it. And that's kind of the difference, I think, between the two nowadays. A lot of people say they're one another the same. I disagree with that. And I think that's pretty obvious. Even most, aside from the far leftists, I think pretty much everyone acknowledges that. So violence in the classrooms, number one, we have to number one, I mean, it's the breakup of the family too. I mean, that's something that the left has spearheaded. So, I mean, that's something that, big government policies have created, and their solution to it is more government. It's so stupid. It's like, it's like putting a Band-Aid on top of a Band-Aid. It's basically their solution to it. The other thing is increasing class sizes. I mean, there isn't the money to pay more teachers. I mean, if there's not any more money the other thing too is that these teachers are already making, I don't think you can possibly make the argument that they're making more money than they're worth, especially given the amount of time they get off. There's no possible way you can honestly make that argument that a job that the average person could do, when you prorate it for a whole year, we're talking like $100,000 a year, they're not worth that much. You're not fooling anyone. Just because you have a college degree does not mean you're worth that much. I would bet any amount of money. I mean, the studies have been done, so you don't even have to bet, but public school teachers are run-of-the-mill when it comes to levels of intelligence. They're nothing special. The high school, the outliers, the physics, the math teachers, yeah, but those are the outliers. They're maybe 5% of teachers are something that you actually have to have a high degree of intelligence to do. So basically the take home of this story is this is just another example of craziness in my mind. Like the extent people are willing to go to not acknowledge that as provinces, as countries, even as cities, we can't afford to keep spending money the way we're spending it. The province of Ontario is in, per capita, a lot more debt than the state of California. The state of California is in, per capita, one of the highest amounts of debt in the U.S. So, and if you're going to argue that debt isn't a bad thing, well then why not just give everybody, $10,000 or $100,000 like on the spot? Like just give everybody money if debt's not a bad thing. But they wouldn't say that, because unless you're AOC level of stupidness, you're not gonna make that argument. So debt can't be sustained, and if debt can't be sustained, then public schools we don't have the money. It'd be nice if we had the money, but we don't have the money to fund them the way they're currently being funded. And if public school, and the other thing too is that if public school let's say they're fighting for more, if they're really worth the amount of money that they're worth, then why aren't they arguing for a free market? Like, why aren't they arguing for a free market? Because if they're really worth $80,000 a month, or $100,000, or not a month, a year, Or if they're worth even more, if they think they're worth more than that, then why not advocate for a free market system? Because in a free market system, you'd be paid however much you're worth. Because if you're worth $100,000 or $80,000 a year or $100,000 a year, people will pool together and pay you that much to teach their kids. But they know they're not